Okay, so hello there, colleagues. I hope you're all doing great. In this short talk, I will just tell you how to make your students speak more, speak more in a virtual classroom, how to get students interact more, so based on the experience that I have with my students. But before starting, I would just like to share with you this short quote. Telling is not teaching. Listening is not learning. Teaching is listening, learning is talking. And this is basically what we're trying to do in our classes. We're trying to learn through talking. We're trying to make them have their voices heard and express themselves eloquently. We know actually that in a classroom, in a virtual and online-based classroom, it's really hard to have this natural interaction with the students, but still, it's not impossible. We can, step by step, we can create this natural atmosphere where students can feel at ease and can interact actually comfortably with one another. So yeah, I'm gonna share with you some tips that I use in my classroom to make my students express themselves and interact with me, either with me or with each other. Have more interaction time with one another. So the first thing is I always start my class with an icebreaker, either in the format of a game. So I plan a very quick game that would take us only 15 minutes at the beginning of the class, or with just warm-up questions. And this is what I do often, because games often take time. So they take us normally more than 30 minutes, and sometimes we cannot just go with games. So I always start my classes with some warm-up questions, such as like, how was your day? How do you feel today? And I always give them like some choices like tired, happy, sad, excited. And if they answer me, I always ask them why. And or I always go with this question like, what day is today? What was yesterday? What day is tomorrow, for example? And what is your favorite day, for example? Why do you love this specific day? And so on. And also another question that I ask is, what did you do before coming to class? So I taught them how to talk about their daily routine, things that they can do before or after going to school. And so they always manifest those things to tell us about their routine before the school or after the school. Or what did you study today? And this has been a frequent question that I actually asked my students in the previous classes, because it's school season, so they are very excited about the subject and very excited to this new start. So they're always very eager and very motivated to share with me the subject that they studied and the things that they learned in that day. Of course, yeah, I don't ask all these questions at once. These are just examples, so I can go only with one question and give the chance to everyone to answer. And yeah, another thing is that I always elaborate on their answers. So if someone says, like, for example, I'm sad or I feel tired today, yeah, it would be a good idea to ask them why and to try to understand the roots of their maybe tiredness or sadness or whatever. So it's good also to ask follow-up questions depending on the student's answer. The second thing is I always encourage them to speak. Of course, this hasn't been easy. So they're shy, they're afraid to make mistakes, they're afraid to share, and speak and use English. But what I do actually is that I always acknowledge the students' bravery. Because there are some students who are always eager to speak first, like they're always raising their hands and they want to speak first, they want to share first, they want to answer first. So I always acknowledge them. I say like, good job, for example, good job, Ella. Yeah, you're the one who always initiates the discussion. You're always the first one to answer. So that's good job. And others start wanting again to do the same thing, because we know that kids compete against each other. So this creates a sense of competition, which is great, because we know that competition is one way of learning, especially with the kids. And also I give compliments when someone speaks or answers one of my questions. I always say great, excellent, good. And this actually matters because based on my experience, when a kid, for example, answers and I just say nice or I just say okay and move to the next, I can see it on their face. I can see that they feel disappointed because they're waiting for good compliments. So yeah, again, we're talking about kids, so they are always waiting and eager to listen good compliments and good reflections from their teachers. And also, I show interest. So when someone is speaking, I'm always like smiling and nodding my face, nodding my head actually, and I'm showing like I'm attentively listening to them and following what they're saying. And again, because probably when they're talking, they're looking at you, they're staring at you from through that little box. So they want to see it on your face. They want actually to see it on your face that you are listening to them and you're following what they're saying. Yeah, and again, be an active listener. What I want to mention here is that based on my experience, actually, I don't correct their mistake. I don't interrupt them and correct their mistakes. I just wait for them till they finish. They finish their answer. I know they make plenty of mistakes, but I just take notes of those mistakes while they're speaking. And it's till they finish that I actually say, okay, you didn't pronounce this right. Can you repeat this sentence? Can you repeat this word? Because when you constantly interrupt them, they won't feel comfortable speaking anymore. So I guess, in my opinion, just take notes of their mistakes and leave them till they finish their answers, and let them speak and express their mind naturally, and then correct their mistakes. And another thing is personalize the questions. We know that kids love to talk about themselves, their experiences, their feelings, their tastes, their aspirations. So I try always to make the questions personal and question that would allow them actually to share about themselves, about their family, like let's say their feelings and so on. And our questions have to be, of course, open-ended. So they know that the question, there is no notion of right or wrong, true or false. No, it's just an open-ended question, which means every answer is possible. And this way they feel more comfortable speaking. And because they know they're not going to be judged, they're anything can be said, anything can be shared. And yeah, so of course, sometimes this can be at the middle of the class or at the beginning of the class or till the end of the class. If I feel that my students are actually bored with the grammar or with the reading stuff, so we can just turn it into a small discussion. And it depends again on the context. Sometimes if we're having, for example, a text on family, or if we're having a text on school, I just turn it a little bit personal and ask them about their school, their family, and they initiate this little nice chat together. And of course, using visuals, such as images, paintings, videos, etc. And I make them comment on them. Yes, so images can be like, for example, from the textbook, or I can just show them a video about something. And whenever we do that, even if it's like music, even if we listen to a music, I always like ask them, how did you find it? Did you like it? Or if it's a video, if it's a story, a short animated story, always asking this question, what happened in the video, or what happened in the story? Did you like the story? Why not? And yes, I can also just, for example, stop the lesson and ask them to comment on a picture that we have in the textbook. By asking them some helpful questions like, what do you see in the picture? Yeah, you see a house. Okay, so what color is the house? What again do you see? And so on. So you ask them, you guide them by asking some questions, and this most of the time helps make them speaking. Yeah, I also push them to speak and ask questions. Especially those shy kids and those who don't feel actually comfortable speaking, so who are actually very shy and very reluctant to speak. So I always, mention them, call them by name, and ask them to speak. And one another thing, actually, if you can, on another level, if you have your kids respond to each other, that would be even great. Because when we talk about interaction, it can be students, students, teacher, student, or vice versa, or student to student. And if you get to this level that your students are interacting without you facilitating discussion or without you asking the question, that would be really great. One way that I'm actually trying to build this dynamic in the class, and one way to do this is when someone, for example, answers, I can ask the other person, do you agree with him? Do you agree with her? Do you share the same idea? So X said this, what do you think? So then you make them respond to one another. And yeah, of course, to make them ask questions, to make them speak, we need to trigger their sense of curiosity, because we know that little kids are very curious. And so we try always to trigger and push them to be more curious so that they can ask more questions. And last but not least is one thing that I do is that I make them nominate each other and pass the turn to each other. And this has deemed to be a good idea, actually, for them to break the ice with one another and to make them, feel more at ease and more like have an easy discussion with one another. It also takes the burden of you calling like students by name every time. So here is what I do. For example, if I ask them a question, let's say, how was your day? Or what did you study today at school? They would answer. For example, let's say Ala would answer, and then she has to nominate another one to answer. By asking, so she asks them the same question that I asked her. And this is a good way because throughout this they get to learn how to ask questions in an appropriate way, and at the same time, you get the whole class speaks, because basically the circle is gonna move. So from one student to another, you don't have to nominate students, you don't have to ask them. They know that their turn is coming. They know that when the person finishes speaking, they're going to be called. So they're always ready. And yeah, I find it's very interesting and very helpful. And I always do it like either with questions or when I have a discussion activity. Yeah, this way everyone actually gets involved. Yeah, I think that's all. Those were like some of the things that I use in my class to make my students speak more. We know it's, again, a online based classroom, so it takes time. I hope you found this helpful. Thank you very much for your attention.